Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for around about the next 45 minutes. So welcome along to today's webinar for Sage 50 Accounts. It's one of our webinars in the series of webinars that we're running where we're looking at sort of clearing records from Sage 50 Accounts. So we covered things like running your year end. We've already looked at clearing your audit trail and removing old customer records, suppliers, nominal bank records. We've had a session on invoices, orders, quotations, but today we're looking at the stock area. So we're going to be looking at clearing stock transactions to enable us to then clear out old stock records as well. So those records that you've got on your products and services list. If you haven't attended the other sessions yet, but you would like to, do check out our registration page. It does include the links because we do repeat the sessions. And if you can't make the repeat session, then recordings are available as well. So again, that link will be held on or available to you on the follow-up email, which you receive around about an hour after we finish. Just before we get stuck into today's webinar, though, a little bit of housekeeping, just for those of you that may be new to our sessions. First of all, you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you've got one, it will be muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself. And that just means if you've got any questions for me today, and it's just myself running the session with you today, we don't have any help in the background. So any questions for myself, you'll need to submit them via the questions panel. You do that by clicking the little speech bubble icon on your taskbar down the right. When you click it, it'll expand and you'll get access to the box in the bottom corner. So any comments, questions, pop them in there. Remember to click send, otherwise I won't see them. And you'll be sat there wondering why you haven't had an answer. That's why. So type it in, click send, and then I'll just try and pick that up as we're working through today's session. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides that I'm using, then they are available to download during the session. Do take that opportunity to download them during the session. They're not available afterwards. We normally have to dig them out and send them out manually if anyone requests them. So do take that opportunity if you want them. The detailed information we are going to be covering today, though, or the detailed information supporting what we're covering today, that is available from our help centre. And as I mentioned, that email that you'll get containing the relevant links that you need to register for other webinars and access our recordings, that you'll get that round about an hour after we finish. And it will include a link to today's recording as well. Anyway, let's get stuck in. So this is what I'm going to be covering in today's webinar. So we're going to start with a little bit of a sort of background. Why would you clear stock transactions and maybe want to delete records? It's always a big question. So we'll cover sort of the basics. We're then going to run through a series of demonstrations. So we'll look at manually deleting records. We'll look at clearing stock transactions, and then we'll be looking at the delete stock records option. So a little bit different to manual deleting, the actual delete wizard itself, where it will identify for you the records that can be deleted, rather than you almost like stabbing in the dark and when you're doing it manually and say it coming up with a message saying, oh, you can't do this one. It will just identify which ones you can delete, and then you'll be able to select whatever and then say, yeah, get rid of those. But if you're in a position when you can't delete a record, why is that? So certain criteria needs to be met. So we'll be looking at that in a bit more in depth and how you can track it down, because sometimes it might be an old invoice or an old order that's in the way of you actually deleting a record. Maybe just a little bit of tidying up in the background would then enable you to remove that. We'll also want to pick up on alternatives as well. So coming back to the starting point, why might you clear it? You might think, well, actually, I've heard what you have to say about that, but maybe I don't want to, or maybe you're not in a position to be able to do that. What's the alternatives to actually removing that information? And then just at the end, we'll just explain more about the additional support. So Help Centre is a great source of information for that one. And also if there are any outstanding questions, I'll hang around and try and pick as many of those up as I can. But do keep your questions coming. If you're not sure about something, you maybe see something in the background when I'm sharing my screen, let me know. Just pop a quick comment in there, and hopefully we'll have enough time to branch off here and there this morning. So anyway, let's get stuck in with our first section. So why would you clear stock transactions and delete records? Now, first of all, this is the one I need to stress, and we do this all the time when we talk about removing older information. It is an optional task. A lot of people think that will be done automatically when you run the likes of a year end, that it would get rid of your older information. It doesn't. It's these optional tasks. So it's normally a series of processes that you would follow maybe after running year end. So that seems to be the common point where people think, right, well, I've run year end, and they start thinking about, right, how much of the old information do I need to retain? Now, for the products and service record area, there is now a recommendation, and this has just been brought in the last few years when we started looking at managing data a little bit more, of anything up to 20,000 products and service records. Now, if you're thinking, well, I've got no idea how many I have, then all you need to do within your software, just go into help and about. And in the middle column, if you scroll down, there's a section called records, about halfway down that page. And in amongst that, it will say product records. In my case, it's not many, I'm well short of the 20,000. And it will say product records active as well. And I'll tell you a little bit more about those a little bit later on, sort of difference between active, inactive. So 20,000 is a recommended limit. It's not a hard ceiling by no stretch of the imagination. We've certainly come across customers that have a lot more than that. So there's no fixed limit as such. It will just continue to go on. But obviously, the more you have, the more space it's going to take up. And when it comes to running reports and filtering through your lists, etc., it's going to take that bit longer. So if you can remove your older transactions, which in turn means that you can then remove records as well that maybe you no longer need in your live company, you can obviously pick and choose which ones. It just helps to ensure that your software is going to run that bit more efficiently. So I've got a few examples there. So just in general, processing may be quicker. So when you're looking, maybe entering an invoice and you're looking for a particular product, the less you have, it should be that bit quicker just to select it. When you run reports, less information you have, the quicker it's going to be to generate the report. Check data is going to take less time. Your backups are going to be that bit smaller. So there's loads of benefits, but normally it's probably the big benefit is, if anything, efficiency. So that speed aspect. So when you're accessing certain screens, it doesn't take as long to load that screen, to scroll up and down the list to find what you're after. So there are benefits, but obviously the downside is you are removing information from your live company. Now, we would always recommend before you even think about deleting and removing all the information, that you either take a backup or you create a company archive. Now, we've got separate webinars on those options. We actually ran one on company archives just yesterday, and we'll be repeating that session. I think it's a week on Wednesday, that one. So if you haven't had a chance to attend that one before, and you want to learn more about archives, which is essentially just an exact copy of your data, and it sort of puts that to one side, so you've got it there for reference purposes if you need it. And it means that if needed, you could switch to the archive and you could view whatever the information was as it existed at the time. But backups, if you're not already taking regular backups, please start. Don't be that person that contacts our support team and says, right, my PC's crashed. And then they'll say, right, have you got a backup? So obviously PCs can be replaced, software can be reinstalled. The most valuable part of all of that is your data. So make sure you take regular backups. Anyway, we'll get stuck into some demonstrations then. So first of all, we're going to look at manually deleting records. So nice and easy. Now, there are three types of product record, or two, depending on the level of product that you're on. So there's what you term a stock item, where it will record the movement of stock in and out. So you get that history. It creates an activity as you enter invoices and book stock in, etc. There is non-stock, which is a record where basically it doesn't record stock levels. So it almost acts like almost like just a price list item. So if you're entering an invoice, you'll be able to pull it through and it'll bring through a standard description and a price, but it doesn't record any stock levels. And then finally, if you're on the professional level of the software, similar to non-stock, you've got what's termed a service item. So again, it's a way of setting up a record, and it just operates essentially in exactly the same way as a stock item, but you can flag it as a service item. So again, that one doesn't record any activity. Now, the simple way to delete your products and services is literally from the list, or to select the records that you want to get rid of, and then you can click delete on your toolbar at the top. We'll have a look at that in just a second. I do want to mention some tips for selecting records as well. There's a few different ways you can do that. So I want to pick up on the list selection style, maybe applying a filter to help you try and identify those records that you want to get rid of or can get rid of, but also the things like the swap and clear options as well. So let's quickly switch across to my screen and we'll get stuck in. So we start by going into products and services, and I've set up some products here. If anyone uses the demonstration data, or you've been to webinars before where we've looked at this area, you might be familiar with this sort of list of products, but I've added a few others in here as well, just for demonstration purposes. Right, now then, we've got so we've got the three types at the top. Now, what I'll do for the stock item, I'm just going to quickly book an item into stock. So I'll just do a quick adjustment here, and I'll use today's date, and I'll say I've got 10 of those, and I'll say they cost me £5 each. So this one now has a quantity in stock. Now I can't do that for a non-stock item. It doesn't record that. If I try and do an adjustment, an adjustment in, I should say, click on the right option this time, I'll get it. Non-stock or service items are not available for stock adjustment. So anything to do with the movement of stock, it doesn't record that. So some options won't be applicable. Now, what it means is that if you've got anything that's flagged as a non-stock item, which just for simplicity, I've called it non-stock, and I've called this one service. Now, these ones, just in case if you wanted to get rid of them, you would highlight them, and literally you've got that delete option at the top. So I click delete, you'll be prompted, are you sure you wish to delete the selected records? If I click yes, and they're now gone from the list. So very simple to remove them in that way. The stock item, however, you can see we've got a quantity in stock. Now, if I highlight this one and I click delete, and again, I'll be prompted, are you sure you wish to delete the selected records? If I click yes, I get this message, so this information box pop up. This is chances are if you're trying to delete records, you'll have seen this. So it's telling me it's not possible to delete all of the records that I have selected, albeit only one in this instance. And it gives me a number of reasons. So it's got maybe items still in stock. So yes, we do have a quantity in stock for this one. Stock codes still have transactions. So does it have activity on it? Now that wouldn't be applicable to, those first two wouldn't be applicable to a non-stock or a service item because it doesn't record that. If you're on the professional level, you've also got reasons 3, 4, and 5 on that list. So to do with it, number 3 is to do with the bill of materials. So is it a component or does it have a list of subcomponents? That needs to be removed before you can delete an item. Is it attached to a sales order and you've got the stock allocated? And finally, is it on a purchase order this particular item, and that purchase order is placed on order. So it just gives you that full list of reasons. It's not specific, even though I've just selected one. It doesn't give me the exact reason why. I'd need to go and track that down, and I'll come back to that a little bit later on. Now, 3, 4, and 5 are a little bit less common to come across as being the reason why you can't delete a record. So I'll just OK that for the time being. Now, what I did want to mention just before we do start working through the rest of the demos is the selection style, so the way that you select records. Now, what I've got specified at the moment, and when I've talked about selecting records, I'm on about highlighting them. So if I was to click on stock, you can see it's highlighted in green. If I come down to this board product, and again, it's highlighted in green when I click on it. So this is what we term the Sage selection style. It's like an on-off highlight. If I click onto this one, it highlights. If I click on it again, it removes the highlight. So it's like an on-off highlight on that one. Now that means if you've got loads of these records that you want to get rid of, you're going to have to go down and select the ones that you're after. Just click clear to remove them. Now what you might find is actually yours doesn't work in that way. So when you select a record and you then go to select another record and click on it, you might find that the previous one is no longer selected, and that's what you term the Windows selection style. Now you can toggle on that style of selecting records by going into Tools, Options, and just on the Environment tab, you've got your list selection style here. So if I switch to that Windows one that I just mentioned, click OK, I'll come back in and reset it in a moment. So we'll go back to products and services. And the way this one works, so if I highlight stock as an example, we'll come down and we'll click on this books 001 product. When I click onto that one, you'll see the highlight follows me around. And if I just randomly click, you'll see that follows me around, that highlight. Now, if I want to select multiple records with that style selected, what I need to do is, first of all, I can set a range of records. So I would highlight the first one in the range. So let's see these component 1, 2, 3. If I wanted to highlight the first one, and then if I hold down the Shift key and then click onto the last one in the range, it highlights everything in between as well. If I just want to select random records, so with gaps in between, what I can also do is I can hold down my Control key. I'll hold down the Control key on the keyboard, and then with that held down, I can just select other accounts or other records. Now, if I release that Control key and then I just think, right, well, actually I meant to add this A4 ledger book as well. Now, I've not got any keys held down. So if I then click onto that one, I've just lost that selection. And that's because I wasn't holding down the appropriate key. So it depends which one you like. I think if you've used Sage a while, you tend to go for the Sage selection style, where it's in like that on-off selecting of records. Whereas by default, you should find it is the Windows one. So just to remind you where that setting was, it's Tools, Options. A few interesting options in here as well for things like the colors and things like that. But it's Tools, Options, Environment, and then you can toggle between these two. It's something that's a PC specific setting as well. So if you like selecting them in one way, you might prefer the Sage one. Your colleague, maybe on their PC, they like the Windows selection style. They can set their own. So I'm just going to set mine back. That's what I'm used to. Don't want to confuse myself on these demos. And we'll just OK. So we're back now to sort of randomly. I can just click, and then if I want to remove a highlight, I can just click on it again. The other one to quickly mention is swap and clear. Now, if you've never really come across swap and clear at the top, where you've got a list and you want to make a selection, you'll find they're generally available along the top. Now, what the swap and clear option does is swap, it reverses the selection. So if you've got nothing selected, by clicking swap, it would highlight everything. Now, if I deselect these items here, so I've still got the others selected. So let's say you wanted to select everything except for these 5 as an example, highlighting everything and then deselecting what you don't want might be a little bit quicker. If I click swap at this stage, you can see again it reverses that highlight selection. So I'll just switch another few more on. Again, I'll go back to swap and it reverses it. Clear just removes any selection that you've got made. The other reason for you might to help with your selection is you might want to use a filter. Now, if you've never come across filters before, been around for a long time, used to be called search in the many years ago, now called filter, does the same thing. It's just a way of filtering your list. So if I only wanted to see maybe all of these records that have 0 quantity in stock, I could go into filter and I could say, let's just reset it. I can say where. And if I just scroll down, there's loads of fields in this one. If you know what you're looking for. So let's see if I've got it on the list here. Quantity in stock, there it is. And I'll say is equal to, and I'll put the value to 0. If I click apply, and what I'm left with in the background are only the records telling me at the top here, out of my 114 records that I've got in total, 46 of them match that filter. So it's listed the ones that have nothing in stock. If I go into the filter, maybe I switch it the other way. I say is not equal to 0. So I'm looking for anything that doesn't have a 0 quantity in stock. Apply that, close, and we'll see the other way on. So we've now got 68 of the 114 records listed. But setting it to something like quantity in stock is equal to 0, and applying that. So I've got all the ones that have nothing in stock, and I might just think, well, actually what I'm going to try and do, I'm just going to try and get rid of anything that has a quantity in stock at the moment of 0. So then I might think, well, I'll click swap to highlight everything and then go via the delete option. It will not let you get rid of anything that doesn't meet the relevant criteria though. So if I click delete, yes, I get that message pop up. Again, we're going to go through that in a bit more detail soon. I click OK, and for my list, actually it doesn't make much difference. Got rid of a few of them, but otherwise the others are still listed. So the main part of that, if I just click delete again, the main part of that criteria, so this information box that pops up, is steps 1 and 2. So first of all, it won't let you delete stock records where you have a quantity in stock. Now these ones are all saying the quantity in stock is 0, so that's not the case. But the second one relates to it. It's transactions. So have you got activity against a particular record? That's probably going to be the reason why. Now, if you have attended the other sessions where I think it was, I can't remember if it was Jackie or Matt now, that talked about removing customers. You'll know you can't delete a customer if they've got activity on them. So you've got this process called clear audit trail. So you clear the audit trail to hopefully get rid of the activity, which then means you can get rid of the customer record or the supplier record. And it's similar in the stock area. You've got to get rid of the activity before you can clear your stock records. Right, now let's just remove this filter so I'm back to that full list. So picking on this one as an example, this one I've got called stock record, you can see I've got a quantity in stock. Now it won't let me get rid of that one because of that. But if I just adjust out the quantity in stock, so it's, let's say we'll get rid of that 10 that's in stock at the moment. Again, it might be you've got old records and you think, well, actually it's saying I've got 2 in stock. We haven't sold that item or purchased that item for many years. We don't even have that. We've just written off that stock. It may have just been lost, damaged. We might have just thrown it out. It's worthless. So we just want to almost get it down to 0 quantity in stock. Nice and easy. Adjustment out. Adjust out whatever you've got in stock. It's 0. Now at that stage, although it's 0, I'm still not going to be able to delete that one. So I click delete, it still gives me that. Here's the reasons why. It may be because I've got activity. Now the activity, if I have a look at that, so I can click on it, click activity at the top, or we can double click it, go into the record, and if I click on the activity, we can see we've got some transactions listed. So in this case, we've just got 2 transactions. So how do we go about clearing that activity? That's what we're going to look at next. So let's pop back to the slides. And we're going to first of all look at clearing stock transactions. So what options have you got? What does the process look like? Now, if you're familiar with clearing the audit trail, again, remember, it is something that's optional. You'll access the option to clear stock transactions by going into Tools, Period End, and there's an option called Clear Stock. Now, when you choose this option, you can choose, I want to clear stock transactions for all of my records up to a certain date, or you can select the records. There might only be certain ones that you want to remove the activity for. So it will give you the choice. Now, if you think back to Clear Audit Trail, for those of you that have attended that or that are already familiar with it, that one doesn't give you the choice of saying, right, you only want to clear stock on for customers or suppliers only or nominal only. It doesn't do that. It doesn't let you do it for specific customers or specific suppliers. It's all or nothing for that one. But with the stock area, it does. It lets you choose which records you want to clear potentially activity for, and it will also ask you what date you want to clear up to as well. Now you will be prompted as you run through this to back up again. Never used to do this many years ago, and I taught many years ago as well. It would have just let you continue through, and more often than not, people contact us and say, right, well, I've cleared that one by mistake. How can I undo that? So we've now got that backup option, which it will force you to do that backup before you can clear your stock transactions. Now, there are considerations, and that's really on the reporting side. So remember, if you're removing history, then it means that you can no longer report on that history. So there's things like if you use the retrospective product valuation report, clearing stock transactions is probably then something we would recommend that you just don't do unless you're wanting to remove a record completely. But if it's an ongoing record, we'd never recommend that you clear stock transactions for your ongoing records. But anyway, let's have a quick look at that process so you can see what it looks like. So I'll just concentrate on this record for the time being. So if I just close that. So we know we've got 2 transactions. Now, if I'll have a quick look at the activity, you can see they're both dated with today's date. Now, I want rid of those transactions so that I can then delete this product record and no longer need it in my accounts. So what I'll be able to do is, if I go to Tools, Period End, and then we've got an option Clear Stock. You've got the option Delete Stock as well. Now, both will take you into the same sort of wizard. And we can toggle between the 2 options if we want. So clear stock transactions or delete stock records. Now, we're going to concentrate on clear stock transactions first of all, equivalent to clear the audit trail, but this time for your stock activity. Now, it tells me I've got 92 stock records. Now, if I wanted to just clear stock across the board up to a certain date, great. I'll just leave that selected and choose the date for when I want to, or potentially I want to remove the history for. So now with this one, you can actually enter any date you want. It will let you clear right up to date if you want to. It's up to you when you do that. If you only want to do certain records, then you just click this option here, second option, and then you can go through and you can say rather than everything, what I want to do is maybe I want to just manually select certain ones. You might even apply a search to, if you want a certain category of record. But I'll just select that one rather than do it across the board. We'll just OK that. And what I'm going to do is, let's pop in today's date. So it's the 10th today. I'll leave it set to that, and I'm going to click Clear Stock. Now, as I mentioned, you are forced to take that back up. If you cancel out at this point, it's going to basically go around in circles. So what I want to do is I want to select that one, pop in my date, click Clear Stock. I'll take that back up. So I'm just going to click OK to it. Obviously I can change the file name if I want to, choose the location, click OK, let it run through. It tells me the backup has been successful. OK, that one. And then it tells me that the Clear Stock routine has finished. So it's run through. Now, if you're on a big set of data, or you've maybe selected all your records, or maybe you've done a selection where you've got lots of records selected, then that may take a little while to run through. Obviously with mine, I selected one record and it had 2 transactions. So nice and quick. So just OK that. I'll close out. And if I go back into products and services, into this one here that we've been looking at, have a look at the activity and you'll see there's nothing there now. So it's managed to get rid of those transactions. They've met the criteria to be removed. So what it now means is that I could go through and I could just manually select that record and then click delete. And it should now remove it as long as it meets that other criteria. I'll not do it manually now because you've seen how to do that. You make your selection, click delete and say, yes, I want to get rid of them. I'm going to show you the other way of getting rid of it by that wizard. Right, now if I go back into tools, in fact, I'll go back to the slides first of all, just to tell you a little bit about the delete stock records wizard. So it was that sort of second tab when I went into that screen. So you access it in it's pretty much the same way, tools, period end, and then delete stock. So the difference between clear stock and delete stock, clear stock is relating you to transactions, delete stock relates to your records. Well, all it does, the difference between the two when you go to the tools period end menu is that if you choose clear stock, it opens this window and it highlights the top tab. If you go into tools period end delete stock, it opens that window and you're on the delete stock records, but you can always toggle between the two if required. Now, when you get to that point, you'll click Start Scan. And the idea of Start Scan is that it will identify all of your product records that can be deleted. Now, it will identify all of them. Now, that would include any service records, if you've got it flagged as a service item, any non-stock items, but it identifies all of the records that meets the criteria to be deleted. So if an item did have a quantity in stock or it did have a activity against it still, it wouldn't pick that up. It's just going to say, right, these are the ones that you can delete now if you want to. Again, you'll be prompted to back up as part of this process. So let's just have a quick look at that. So pop into tools, period end, and we'll choose delete stock this time. So we're on that second tab of the two, delete stock records. Again, it gives you a little bit of information about a little bit of what we've covered, that message that was popping up that's saying you can't do this because of. So it tells you a little bit more, a little bit of information about that. Now, all I need to do at this stage, I click Start Scan. Again, I'm prompted to back up. So I'll just OK that. Tells me it's been successful. Again, tiny set of data that I'm using today. So really quick. We click OK. And then this is the list of records that it identifies. So in this case, it's actually just the one that it's found. Paul, your question there, is there a way of scanning customers the same as stock management to see which ones have not bought up to a certain date? I'll come back to that one. Remind me on, I'll try and pick that up at the end. We'll just concentrate on the products and services for now. So yes, there is an option for that one. So you would apply, you would use the filter option to do that, but we'll come back to it. I'll show you how to do it. That's a nice, easy one to demo for you. So what you'd probably normally expect at this stage, if you'd cleared sort of your activity for most of your records, that you'll probably have a great big list of these records that you can get rid of. So it'd just be a case of you going through, selecting the ones that you want to get rid of. If it's just everything that's listed, again, rather than going through, click, 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 highlighting them all, you could just click swap. And again, it would reverse that selection. So make just highlighting everything at once. So make your selection, click OK. It tells you you're about to permanently delete. It will tell you the number of products that you've selected, or you sure you want to continue. So I'll just click yes to that. And it tells me in this case, one record successfully deleted. Obviously, you might have thousands on there that you want to get rid of. So we just OK that. Close out, back into products and services, and that product is now being removed from the list. So you've got the two options when it comes to deleting. One is just to do it manually, which is great if it's a non-stock or a service item. Or if you're in a position where you've got records that you've set up, but actually you've never done nothing with them. You know, it might be a stock item, and maybe you've set it up in readiness for something, but there's no activity recorded against it because you've never adjusted anything in, or you've never sold that item. So you've got the two options: doing it manually or going via that wizard. Obviously, the wizard option, it's going to identify which ones are in the right position. Now, what I do want to do is I want to pick up on the next section is, well, why can't I delete a record? I've tried, I've selected it, but it's understanding this criteria. What position does a product record that's flagged as a stock item, what position does it need to be in to be able to be removed and deleted? So we've largely covered the first two, where you've got an item in stock. So it's got a quantity in stock showing. Number two, similar, we've just covered that one. It's still got transactions on the activity. So it's a nice, easy option just to try and track that down. You look at the activity. Is there anything there or not? If there is, well, it's because you haven't cleared stock, so it's still sat there. But there are a few other options as well. And this relates to if you're on Sage 50 Accounts Professional only. So option 3, or reason 3, on that message, it says stock codes or possible subcomponents. So this is when you're using the bill of materials option. So it's either got a list of subcomponents, or the product you're trying to get rid of is a subcomponent of another item. Now, easy enough to check whether that is the case or not. I just go back into my desktop for a moment. And I'm going to pick up on this one first of all. So this one here at the top, you can see first of all, in stock is 0. So that's not the reason. If I have a look at the activity, there's nothing there. So I know that's not the reason as well. If I click onto the bill of materials tab, again, you'll only have this if you're on the professional level. Well, actually, I can see in this case, I've got a list of subcomponents. I need to remove those components before I can delete this main record. It needs to have nothing shown. Now, if that was the case, all I would do is I would highlight a line, and then I could do, for instance, F8 on the keyboard, which discards the line, and I could repeat that for each of them. Or I can just, another easy option, just hold down your F8 key and it will start deleting them all. And when you're done, save the record, and that should be gone. So what you've got here is, if you've got a bill of materials, and it may have subcomponents listed here, which maybe they have their own sub-assemblies as well. That's what the assembly. So an assembly level it must be 0 before you can delete it, meaning that the bill of materials screen is completely blank. Now, working the other way, if we just save that record, and I go into this one, which I've actually got flagged as being on the bill of materials of this main item. Let's pop into that one. So nothing in stock, nothing on the bill of materials. But actually, if I just close out and try and delete this item, just do it manually for the time being. Again, get all those reasons. So I know there's nothing in stock, there's no transactions. Is it to do with the bill of materials? Is it a subcomponent? Well, the way I can tell that is within the record on the bill of materials. There's nothing listed, but in link level, it says 1. So I know this item that I'm looking at is that it actually appears on 1 bill of materials. Now, which one is it? Well, not an easy task, that one, to find it out. So there is a report that is available to download. Now, if I just pop back to the slides a moment, on the slides, this option here, this how to delete product records, there is all the steps I'm covering today is on that help article. So if you've downloaded that, give it a click, and that will take you to the relevant help article. On there, it will explain about what we term the reverse product explosion report. So what that does is, in fact, I'll show you it if I quickly demo it. It's not a standard report, it's a one that needs to be installed by restoring the additional reports backup that's on that help article. But what you do is, so let's say I'm trying to get rid of this one and I think, well, I know it's a subcomponent, but I don't know what it's a subcomponent of. I don't want to have to go through my 3,000 product records and say, well, go to the first one, check the bill of materials, is this S or 5C1, is it a component of on a bill of materials or not? So you can actually run a report. So make sure you've got nothing selected. You go into reports, and once you've got the report restored so that it's in your software, you can go into the product explosion and bomb tab at the side here. Your reverse product explosion report will then be listed. It's not there by default. And all I need to do is preview it. Now you need to just accept all of the default criteria. So all you're doing is you're looking for the product that you want to get rid of. So in this case, I'm trying to delete this one here, 5C1, and it will list the individual product records that this one, 5C1, is a component of on the bill of materials. So in this case, I know 5C1 is a subcomponent of this one called 4main. So I would just need to get rid of that. So I would need to find 4main, which is this one, into the record, into the bill of materials. I would find the relevant product that I'm trying to get rid of. Oh, there it is there, right? I'll press F8, get rid of it. I'll get rid of the other one while I'm at it. So it's got a blank bill of materials now. And if I go back into this one, the I could say SC1 for some reason. So I think that's my eyes. 5C1. If I go back into it, bill of materials, you'll now see that that link level is 0. So I know this product is no longer a subcomponent of any other item. Now that should mean, because I've got no activity, no quantity in stock, hopefully I'll now be able to delete that record. So if I highlight it, click delete, yes to the prompt, and as you'll see, it's gone. I could have gone back through tools, delete stock as well, and it should have identified it at that point. Now, the last two reasons that were on that information box that pops up, it's to do with stock codes that have allocations and also stock codes that are on order. So reason number 4, stock codes have allocations. It relates to sales orders. So is the product that you're trying to get rid of, it means it's included on a sales order. Now, it's not just on a sales order that's been entered, it's specifically, it's where stock has been allocated to it as well. Now the way that you can check if that is the case, and I've set one up here, make sure I've got the right screen shared for you. Yeah. So if I go into this item here, this one I've called 6SO, if we go into it, and we can see the allocated is 1. It needs to be 0 for me to be able to delete this product record. Now the easiest way with this one is if I want to see which sales orders it's allocated against, I just click on the little plus symbol, and that will give me a list of the relevant sales orders. There's also a similar one as well for purchase orders. So I've got this product item which I've just called purchase order item, and it's this box here, this where it says on order, and it's 1, and again it's got that plus symbol. I click it and it gives me a list of the relevant purchase orders that this one is currently linked to, where that order has an on order status. So in this case it's number 42, which is a purchase order in this case. So I could just close out into purchase orders. Sorry, I think my screen had paused there. I'll do that one again. Sorry about that, Stephen. Thanks for pointing that out though. So let me just quickly do that one again. So we'll go into products and services. So it's this one here. So if I just go into this product for allocated or on order, if you just go into the record, it's these boxes at the bottom here. So allocated, mine's set to 0 on this particular one, but on this one where it says on order 1, I just click on the plus sign, it gives me a list. So I can see it's purchase order number 42. So if I close out of that one, close out of that, into purchase orders, find it purchase order 42. Now I can do a number of things at this stage. One is I could cancel this order to essentially take it off order. It might be an old one that's just been floating around and you've ordered it, but actually it was never delivered and almost it was cancelled, but you've never done anything about that in Sage. So it's an old order. It's still got a status there of on order. So I could cancel the order. I could go into amend and I could just take everything off order. And then just close out and it's no longer got that status then. The other one I could have done is I could have just deleted the order as well if it no longer needs to be there. But what that would mean is because it's now no longer on order, if I go back to products and services, check the item again, and you can see the on order value is now back to 0. And if I click that little plus sign, nothing happens this time because it's 0. And that will be the similar for allocated. So allocated refers to sales orders. So if that's the case, this one's no longer linked to a purchase order. So I'll just highlight it, click delete, and this time it lets me get rid of it. Again, if you want that report, going back to the reverse product explosion report, it's this link here in the bottom right hand corner. Nice and easy to find that though in the help center should you need it. Now there are alternatives I'm going to very, very quickly cover. There are alternatives to deleting records. So you might think, well, actually, I've watched the webinar, I've listened and I've seen what you've got to say about that, but actually I don't want to get rid of information. So we've got a webinar which is on the 16th, that is next week, just checking the dates there, and then I think it's 2 weeks after, Wednesday the 29th. So we got one for inactive records. So rather than deleting records, you can actually flag them as being inactive and then just filter them from your list. But also in our recordings area, which again you'll get a link to on the follow-up email, there's not a specific recording about your products and services for filtering, but filtering is a great option to learn within your software. And if you learn it within the likes of customers or suppliers or products and services, you'll be able to apply this similar sort of theory to the to other ledgers within the software. Just means you can filter your list. So you might have certain products that you just don't want to see them on a day-to-day basis. But actually you don't want to delete them because you want that information to remain on there. So do have a check out the recordings as well. But if you are interested in coming along to the Inactive Records webinar, please get yourself signed up. So 2 dates available for that one starting next week. Now, if you've got any final questions for me, I'm going to pick up yours in a minute, Paul. Then please submit them, send them now, get them submitted. Again, if you weren't quite with us at the beginning, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon and then type in the box at the bottom right hand corner, click send, and then I'll pick those up in a moment. Loads of information in our help center. The key article within there relating to what we covered today is just, if you just search for delete product, and it should find it for you. Now this month we are concentrating on we've got a bit of a theme going on this month, which is all about clearing records. In February, we're going to be introducing our next badging option, which is to do with the banking area of the software. So we've got a series of webinars. I think there's 8, off the top of my head, I think it's 8 different topics that we're going to be covering relating to the banking area throughout February. We've got a quiz relating to that as well. There's 2 sessions of each topic and two quiz sessions as well. To qualify for the badge, you would need to attend six of those topics plus one of the quiz sessions. But they are staggered so that you're not just expected to give up loads of your time in one go. So please have a look, see what's available, see what interests you, and if you are interested, get yourself registered for those. That link's on your follow-up email. So watch out for that one. And just before I open up to questions, let me quickly thank you for coming along today. I hope you've enjoyed it, giving you a little bit more food for thought. Remember, we did mention it at the start, that limit or the recommended limit of up to 20,000. If you're not sure how many you have, just into help about middle section, in the records section, it'll say product records and it will list however many records. So are you anywhere near that sort of 20,000? Remember that 20,000 is a recommendation only. That's not the hard limit. It will let you go beyond that as well. But that's what we recommend. Now, there will be a little survey pop up as you leave today's session. If you can take a minute to complete that, it'd be greatly appreciated. We love reading those comments. Give us a score, share your thoughts, ideas. If there's any topics you'd like to see covered going forward, pop them on there as well. And that follow-up email that I've mentioned, that will be with you in around about an hour's time. So if you're about to leave, many thanks. Hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll see you on some other sessions soon. If you want to hang around just for a few minutes, we'll quickly pick up any outstanding questions. Now, the only one I've got there is from Paul, which sort of relates a little bit to what we've been talking about today. So I will cover that one. I'll quickly demonstrate it. I'll share my screen. And Paul's question from earlier was just, is there a way of scanning customers similar to what we did with scanning products to see which ones haven't bought anything since a certain date? Now, what you've got, if you go into a customer record, if you go into the credit control area, is it credit control? Sorry, sales area. In the sales area, you've got this field at the top, last invoice. So it's got a date in there. Now you can base a filter around that if you wanted to. So if we go to just the customer list and we go into filter, and we can say, I'll just reset that. So we'll say where, and we can either scroll down to whatever field we want, or if you know what that's called, if I just do type L, it jumps me down that list rather than me scrolling through the list of fields. It says last invoice date, and I'll say is less than or equal to. So I'm looking for customer records where the last invoice date is essentially prior to, or on or prior to. So if I do, let's say 31st of December 2023. So these customers I've never invoiced them since that date. So I'll click apply, probably a bad choice. Let's change the date, see if I can find maybe a bit more recent. Let's do 06 2024. See if I've got anything now. It's invalid date, yeah, because there's only 30 days in June. Try that one again. Click apply, and it's now found some. So these are the ones that have not bought anything from me since that date. I've not recorded an invoice against their record. If I pop into one, just so you can see it, have a look on the sales tab. You can see the last invoice date for this specific customer is 24/04/2024. So that's a way of getting at that information. There's not an automated scan option, Paul, like we showed you for products, but there is a way around that. Now, what might be what you're looking for is actually those customers that you haven't invoiced since a certain date, and maybe the balance is also zero. So you can see this one at the bottom here, it's got a zero balance. So we can do a two-pronged attack with a filter. So you can do where last invoice date is less than or equal to that date. Click down to the next line and we'll say, and the balance on the account is zero. So they've never bought anything since a certain date, and actually they don't owe us anything at this point in time. I click apply. I've now got that list, and maybe they're the ones I try to target to remove, or maybe I just flag them as being inactive and hide them just in case they do come back. So number of options there for you, Paul. I hope that sort of is sort of along the lines of what you're after. Not an automated option, but if you use the filters and if you learn the filters, it can add that bit more flexibility to your reporting as well. Right, okay. So back to that final slide. There's no additional questions there, so we'll just end the webinar at that point. Once again, many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it. Do take that opportunity, that minute of your time to complete that survey. If you can squeeze that in before you rush off on your lunch, or if you finish at 12 today, if you can do that before you go home, greatly appreciate it. And as I say, hopefully I'll see you next week on some more webinars. Many thanks.